right. Well, again, thank you for joining the session. I got to go through the mandatory slides. Feedback, please use the app. Thank ESA. Responder as the sponsor. Thank you. Thank you. The antitrust statement, probably the most important slide there. I won't read it, but I'm sure you've seen this how many times? A lot. Yeah. So we got that one.
Everybody ready for the quiz?
And then the objectives. Here, mainly, we're here to talk about the new standard, the AVS-01 standard, and some of the objectives there. My name is Mark. I'm the Director of Global Operations for EMIX. I was also the chair for the standards committee that we put 2.5 years of our life into this standard, and everyone here is also committee members as well on the standard. And I'll let them introduce themselves. So, Javier.
Me. Yes, Javier Olarte. I'm with UL Solutions out of Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. Some of you may know me from, basically doing audits. We do these central station audits. We do installation audits, fire, security, and so on. And I've been with UL for a little bit over 37 years. And like Mark said, we were lucky enough and privileged enough to be part of the committee that developed AVS-01. So that's who we are.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Joey Rayo Russell, and I am the president and CEO of Kimberlite Corporation. We are a Sonatrol dealer. We run a verification-only central station. We also have a conventional side of the business, so I've seen both sides, verification and none. I've been with the company for 22 years, and I am a past president of TMA as well as on the AVS-01 committee.
Derek.
So my name's Derek Oakes. I am the head of software engineering for Bold Group. We do alarm monitoring software as well as business side of the software. I'm fairly new to the industry, so I've been here a whole 4 or 5 months, so drinking from the fire hose right now. But yeah, I'm trying to find out what we can do to help with the implementation of the new standard, and just find out as much as I can about it, and just let you know what we're doing on our side.
Thank you.
Good morning, and so probably nobody knows me either. I'm not in the industry. My name's Bob Finney. I'm the Director of Communications Technology for the Collier County Sheriff's Office. So I'm the Emergency Communications Center, the ECC representative for the panel. I also sit on PPVAR as a representative for ECCs and working through the standard as the same as well. So trying to make sure that these pieces all work together as the standard evolves.
Yeah, I think it's important to call out too. We are here representing TMA. This is the TMA standard. It's TMA as an ANSI institution, so it's their standard. But also PPVAR was heavily involved, and we're all part of the PPVAR committee. It's incoming president,
Past president and treasurer.
Bob, they all know very well. So PPVAR represented as well. All right, so quickly, just a real high level overview of what, if you're not familiar with the standard itself. So AVS-01 is the alarm validation scoring standard. It's an intrusion alarm classification standard. It's really simply put that way. It is focused right now just on intrusion. There's already conversations and discussions happening to include other event types, to be medical, panic, duress, hold up, and even fire, perhaps, if we can get some cooperation within FEA, right, with even fire. There are 3 primary sections within the standard. The first section deals with the how to score and how to classify an intrusion or burglary alarm. The standard itself is written so it can be done manually. And one of the inputs we had from automation was that if we could do a really well-documented manual process, they could easily do an automated process. So it is written out manual. If you look at it, it seems complicated, but if you go through the logic, it's actually pretty straightforward. The second part of that is the consistent communication methods, so how to communicate the classifier of the scored alarms to ECC. And then lastly is the compliance. This is a voluntary standard, like most of them are, but if you do sign up for the standard, there are some thresholds in order for it to maintain compliance. One important thing, this was a very big collaborative effort. The committee itself is probably 45, 46 members, certainly representation from the security industry, but most importantly, we had a representation from public safety as well. So this is a collaborative effort between our industry and public safety. We're going to the levels themselves. So level 0 would be, so there's 5 levels in the classification. 0 being the least. This would be a non-call for service. Cancels out somehow. Electronic cancel, get a confirmation from the key holder, whatever the case may be. For whatever reason, it cancels out. So that's level 0. Level 1 is a very low information alarm. A lot of what we see today. A single trip, even multiple trips, but you don't know why. It could be a trip with video, but you don't see anything in the video. So it's just a low information log. A level 2 would be a confirmed or highly probable human presence but unknown intent. Law enforcement told us very early on that the fact that the human existed or human was present on site made a big difference in how they attacked or how they came to that site. So level 2, the level 2 took us a long time to kind of finalize and get somewhere with it, but it's confirmed through visual, audible, or some firsthand eyewitness, right, to see somebody there, but they don't know why, they don't know what the person's doing, or highly probable through some type of analytics. A very simple example would be an intrusion alarm with an unauthorized open. So somebody had to key it in, but there's an intrusion, you can't verify it. So very simple, highly probable existence of human. Level 3 would be confirmed threat to property. So again, through visual, audio, audible, or firsthand occurrence of a threat to property. The standard lists very specific examples of what we classify as a threat to property. And number 4 is a confirmed threat to life. Different than a panic or duress, because if you think about a panic or duress, it's user initiated. In this case, it's operator observation based on confirmed what she sees, hears, or somebody is maybe on a phone and they're in a home and there's an intruder coming into the home. So it'd be a threat to life. Okay, we're going to get into we got some canned questions. A lot of questions, kind of frequently asked questions. But if you have anything at all during the Q&A part, please raise your hand. Get my question back up here. Phone's dead now. First question goes to Bob. Bob, why is this standard important to the public safety ECC community?
Well, a couple different, and I'll take it from both the ECC, but also the law enforcement perspective. I mean, all of us are probably very aware of the changing that's gone about through policing over the last several years, especially in some communities have been hit very hard. Defunding police type efforts have been very difficult, and just people don't want to be police officers anymore. And so you put that along with the great resignation of that everybody's been going through in all our industries, and filling law enforcement positions across the country has been very difficult. I looked up an example here just locally in Lexington, and pre-pandemic they were losing, to retirement or just people leaving 38 officers a year, and in 2021 it was more than doubled to 77, and so that is something we're seeing. I mean, definitely in the state of Florida, Collier County's down in the Naples-Marco Island area where we get a lot of retirees. So we actually get a benefit because we get a lot of retirees, people that have been in the law enforcement career in other areas. But all that goes to say is what's happening is we've got within our communities, we're not seeing anywhere a decrease in call volume. Our call volumes are going up, alarms and everything else, with less responders is my point. And so what happens is these responders are running around trying to respond to various calls with less resources. And so this is where technology can really help, because it can help those responders identify, like in a level 4 to 5 alarm in as the standard calls them out, to be able to provide better information that would indicate a more urgent response, and so really help with the resources, because that's just really that's becoming an issue. And ECCs, I like football, and ECCs are kind of like the quarterback. They're receiving all the calls, they get everything coming in, and then they have to evaluate what they have in the field, what's available, and how to best utilize those resources. So with the ECCs, who are also understaffed, by the way, and the benefit of this standard is that it's, as you mentioned, is quite straightforward. It can be done manually, and so it's not a huge lift, but then they can have better information to determine how they get these resources and the best use of the resources immediately on these calls. And so it benefits really both from that perspective. And then the officers themselves, I mean, it provides more security, more safety in a response. If you've ever sat in a dispatch center or listened, officers, and I started about 30 years ago as a 911 dispatcher, and so dealt a lot with police officers, deputies, et cetera, and it never fails. You take a 911 call, you dispatch out the information, and then a lot of officers like to play the 20 questions. Well, hey, was there a vehicle description? Or hey, do you have a person description? It's like, you don't say this over the radio, but it's like, no, I'm keeping all this secret because I want it to be a surprise. But a lot of times, and especially in the alarm industry, it can be a surprise, back to the zone 3, what is that? So really they're going in a lot of times with just zero information. And so that makes it very difficult. So being able to provide anything that may indicate a heightened level of alertness does impact the safety of those responders.
And that goes to the kind of the second component, that what is the standardized type of information that should be available, if available, what can be available to be passed on to UCC. Joe, kind of the same question to you. Why is this standard important to the auto industry?
Well, we all know, going back to law enforcement's challenges, our fundamental promise to our customers and to our communities is that we are going to provide response, right? That's at the core of all that we do, whether we're doing PERS for emergency response, whether it's intrusion alarms to bring, to have safer communities. In order for us to do that, we have to repair some of the trust that has eroded over the years due to the way intrusion alarms were functioning. So the reason the standard is so important is, one, it standardizes for all of us how we're going to communicate. So that also takes a burden off of our employees, okay? Our dispatchers, if they're calling in or doing this, they start asking them questions they don't know how to answer. They don't have the information. They don't understand. So that puts them in a bad position. All of us are trying to find a way to do better in our central stations with less resources or better resources or technology. This is a way to get standardized how we communicate with law enforcement, which is a fundamental portion of their job. It also is a way to standardize for them how they are going to respond to these various levels and what they mean. And just keep in mind, we're all already doing this just in a different way. And right now, in any of our central stations, I run a verification only center, so they're already going through the evaluation process. But if they just get a door alarm and there's nothing else, they're already dispatching with a level 1. They're just calling and saying, I have a motion sensor, or I have a door contact. So they're already doing it. So now they're just going to learn to say level 1. And the most important part of that is for whatever call takers on the other end of the line, if they are doing the traditional phone call and not using an automated service like ASAP to PSAP or a Rapid SOS or whatever else you might be using, that's going to save time both for our operator and their call taker, because they're going to immediately understand what level 1 is. Currently, I know from observing in my central station, when they call out to comm centers, they have a standardized set of questions they have to ask. It's a minimum of 5 questions your call takers are asking us. So they're spending, on average, 30 seconds to a minute on the phone. Whereas if we can just say we have a level 1 door contact, they automatically know what it is. That lets them have a faster response as well. Because that's what everybody has to realize. It's not like we all share a brain, right? We don't have the old Dixie cup with a line where our operator's sitting there to the officer in the car, right? Our customers have that perception. The community has that perception. And so anything we can do to increase the speed of service and increase the information, plus for them when they're trying to dispatch to the officer on site, they're going to have the information to know how to respond, which is going to create a safer environment for them. Because otherwise, complacency can happen. One of the number one ways that law enforcement officers are injured or killed is when they're running lights and sirens in an accident. So we want to make sure that they're utilizing those lights and sirens and those emergency responses for things that actually require it, and that they're going into it with the appropriate understanding. So that's why this became so important, is so that there is universal, hopefully, understanding between our industry of what this means and law enforcement for what they're going to receive. And that's why it becomes so important, is because it makes all of us better. And ultimately, it makes our communities safer. And from a business perspective, it makes our customers stickier, because they're going to want to know that we are a part of the standard and we are working with law enforcement, and they're going to get the best, most effective response to what they need.
Thank you, Joy. And Derek, congratulations, by the way, on the innovation. So the standard, we mentioned the standard was written kind of in a manual process, but we knew that automation was going to be a key to this and how it was delivered to the operator. So what are automation providers? I know you're speaking from both perspective, but in general as well, how could automation providers address the standard?
Yeah, so you're right. Because the first iteration, at least, of this standard is mainly manual processes that humans follow. Technically, anyone using our software could implement it today. There may be some additional things they're going to have to do on the reporting side for UL, but they could implement it today. But like you said, I think like where automation companies can step in, which is where we always step in, which is how do we help add value to the process and add efficiency to the process. So most automation software has something like in our software, it's called action patterns, which it's basically a set of processes and steps that you can implement in the system that guide operators through a very specific pattern that they should follow. And what we're working on is getting some templates out there that we can deliver to our customers that give them a start, because everybody has slightly different processes, but this will kind of give you a template to start out with. So the first part of that is helping somebody evaluate the situation to determine the right code. And then the second piece of that is automatically generating the script that they read when they're calling the ECC, and that comes straight out of the standard. Here's exactly what you should say when you call in. So those two things we can automate and help people out so that people aren't just doing it all through training, because otherwise I think you're just going to have to like drill it into people. But what we really want to do is say you only have a few options and try to simplify it. So that's on the kind of on the manual side. I'm really excited at some point here when we start to get more digital specifications around the standard, because I think at that point, we talk about how important it is for humans to communicate using the same language. It's important for systems to do that as well. So getting everything down to a basic 4 standard codes, I think it's going to add a lot of really cool things we can do to streamline signals that go through the whole way from end to end and get the right people on the situation. So I think that's going to be another important part of it. I think the other area that I was just talking about earlier, when we talk about there will be a UL aspect to this, there's going to be some, if people choose it, there's some things they're going to have to do to be compliant with that. And we can create reports that help customers easily come up with the data they need to supply whenever there's an audit and they need to show that whether they're doing things properly. So that's another area that we can assist, so they're not have to sift through manual notes that they put in every single situation and say, oh yeah, see here, we did it here, we did it here. We'd like to just generate a report that says, here's the codes that you assigned, here's the situation for each one, and then drill down into those. So lots of capabilities there I think we can do to add efficiency to the process.
Okay, thank you. Javier, again, this is a voluntary standard, like most of them are, right? Voluntary. But will there be a UL listing for that? And what does it look like?
Yeah, like most national recognized standard, and this is an ANSI standard. This is a national recognized standard. Like most recognized standards, it is voluntary. Central stations or monitoring facilities can volunteer to get listed for this category. If there is one standard that is calling out for third-party verification, it's probably this one. I mean, this is for public safety, and UL is built around public safety. So we're very excited about the proposition of actually building a brand new category for this particular standard. This category has been in development with UL for over a year, actually, and we were part of the process originally when the standard was being developed. So we got an inside look as to how we should best proceed with a third-party verification. We've gotten a lot of interest from a lot of central stations, some that are listed already and some that are not listed, and about the possibility of becoming listed for this category. So definitely, third-party verification is a way to kind of level the playing field for everybody. If everybody is playing by the same rules, by the same regulations, by the same requirements, from the same standards, that levels the playing field for everybody, from the small company all the way to the large companies. So third-party verification, of course, is a big benefit to everybody. We've been in development for over a year. That this is going to be a brand new category. It has nothing to do with the current central stations that we have right now. So it doesn't have anything to do with UL 827 or UL 1981. Those standards are separate from this standard. We are using the actual TMA AVS 01 national recognized ANSI standard to develop this particular category. And so that's what the focus is going to be all about. We're excited about it. As we go through the questions here, we'll give you more details about what that's going to look like.
Yeah, that was an important goal for us to make sure that it wasn't just a UL listed 827 station, but we wanted to open it up to anybody to participate. Because there are good reasons not to be J27 proprietary, for example. So we want to make sure that anybody could participate. And if they did, they would also be.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We know that was something that was brought up, to us along the course of developing the standard. It was something new to us. It was something new to UL to look at companies or monitoring facilities that were not UL listed. Wow. Okay, that's a big concept for UL because we usually have a way of evaluating a central station, and then based on that they add services. So this is not like that. This like Mark said, you could be a company that is not listed and still get listed for this specific category.
And Joy, you'd mentioned briefly about not a big departure for what centrals are doing. So maybe a little bit more on that. How would a central station implement AVS-01? Either manually or automation or both?
Well, I mean, automation right now is still developing, so that's not really the opportunity. But what we see in the future, what my vision I would see through automation is that using action plans as well as eventually using some deep learning and AI as it continues to grow, where it just becomes the same process that your operators are already doing. If you have a motion sensor and a door contact and you have multi-trip, they're going to rank that higher, right? And they're going to take a bigger look. If, let's say, they're getting motion sensors and door contacts, or for me, audio or video verification or something, at midnight, that looks different than at 8 o'clock when everybody's opening the office, right? We know that standard operating hours matter. We know that, time, not only time, but the types of devices and different things that are there to different environmental data matter. Mark mentioned how we can verify a person is present currently. We know that if we get an invalid code in after we get a motion sensor or a door contact, let's be honest, the dog's not hitting the buttons at the house. At least mine's not. He's not that smart. So we know it's got to be a human there. Now that still means it could be the owner, but we know it's a human. And that's what level 2 is. Now, if all of a sudden, if you go to do a talk down because you have two-way voice or something, and you don't get a response from the person who's done the invalid code in, I would say that promotes it to a level 3, and we know there's probably a threat to property and a high probability of a crime in progress. These are all things you're already doing. Conversely, if you can't get any of that additional information, you default it to level 1, and you're going to follow the normal enhanced call confirmation process that you're already doing in all your centrals. And if you don't get a response from the premise and you don't get a response from the responsible party, you dispatch with a level 1. Or you do reach somebody and they say it's not a crime, so then you downgrade it to level 0, you note it, and you move on. And where automation is going to help us in the first immediate portion, as we were speaking about, is what our resolution codes are. That's where we're really going to just change it and do it now. So you could do this today. You really can. We're already doing it. It's just the difference of saying we have an unverified alarm or a motion sensor alarm that we dispatched on and saying it's a level 1. That's it. And there's this idea that everything has to be, because even in the committee, when we started looking at this, we had these very grandiose and wonderful ideas that I think will happen. It's like AI right now, right? We're seeing the robots from ADT. We're seeing all of these vendors coming and talking to us about this great analytics. Now they're going to do all these things. And the future is incredibly bright through technology for us. And we're going to be able to do so many more things in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And we got kind of caught up in that vision of massive programming and using all this information and trying to create algorithms, making it a fully automated process now. And it's scary for small dealers, or it's scary for small companies like me, because I don't have 50 developers. And so people were thinking that only Big Blue is going to be able to do this, or only Vector is going to be able to do this. That's not true at all. That's why we wrote a process and a function that truly is agnostic to technology. It's agnostic to even municipality to some degree. This is what we have. Now, what we take and run with it and how we do with it, that's up to each individual alarm company. That's up to their automation providers. It's going to continue to grow and evolve, and we're going to be better. But even at this conference right now, there is dealers from the small mom and pop to large national companies to big vendors. We're all implementing and executing to a different level or a different way, and we all have different business plans. Everybody's here because we're successful at it. So don't be afraid of the fact that some people may be using AVS-01 in a different way or augmenting it this way or using this automation to make you think that you can't participate. This is a good thing for everybody. It helps from the smallest dealer to the largest dealer. And we're all already doing it. So it's really only verbiage. That's all it's changing, is how we're communicating. And for everybody who thinks it's so crazy and so scary, I remember when verified alarm responses became this big hotbed 20, 25 years ago, right? And we all had to get on board with enhanced call confirmation and multi-trip and using CPO1, for hardware. And everybody in the industry is like, nobody's going to be able to do this. It's going to be so scary and it's such a different issue. It wasn't. It made us better. It made us more uniform. It helped everybody. And this will be the same thing. I may be overly optimistic, I know, but it really, if I look at my central station and I sit in it regularly, they're not going to be doing anything different. I'll let you. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
It
please.
seems like there has to be an acceptance on the ECC side.
Yeah.
So what's the route for confirming that? I mean, if you're a small company, you probably have maybe one or two agencies. If you're larger, I mean, you could have
Can I take that?
hundreds.
Well, I'm gonna start first, and I'm gonna pass off to Bob. We'd mentioned that PPVAR has been very active with this. TMA owns the standard as the manager of ANZ. PPVAR, which we specialize in priority response. That's really, we're a very focused, very strategic association that's very limited in its focus. And one of the things that's been going through this to begin with was how we can get the education portion to the ECCs and PSAPs or whatever the individual area is calling itself, because law enforcement's kind of like us security people. Nobody likes to be told what they're going to call themselves, right? We've already started beginning with educational videos that are going out to them. We've had conversations with their CAD producers to get the automation protocols in there. So there is already plans from some industry personnel that are trying to move this forward to find beta areas that they're going to beta it with agencies they have good communication with. Our board funds, we're very lucky. We have that's the other thing that's unique about PPVAR. Half our board is made up of law enforcement. So our law enforcement personnel, they're driving this message through their associations the same as we're driving it through the industry associations. So that's the plan, and that's what we're funding, and those are the things that we're doing on that side. For Bob and what they're doing, I'll let him continue to talk.
Actually, the next couple of questions
That's
were right on. Did you want to ask the question, or you want me to just go in?
The questions come up.
There you go.
We'll just take that question.
So how is it going to be implemented in ECCs? And I'll start with from the kind of the technical perspective, since that's what we were. And because, again, and I mentioned technology in my first comments, and since this is a standard that can be done manually, where's the technology? Well, at this point in the early evolution, once a call is received in the ECC, they're going to input that in their computer-aided dispatch system. And the way we're doing this and envision this being rolled out is CAD systems. They will put in for every call type. There's in CAD they list the call type for event codes, signals, whatever they call it, and then the CAD system is able to take that event code and based on a predetermined response, it knows based on the area that they're dispatching to and what that jurisdiction wants. It puts together a response, a number of units. For example, alarms in Collier County. We send 2 deputies, so it pulls up the 2 closest deputies, and that's how the system works. So what we'll do, actually what we've done in preparing for AVS-01 is we've put in the specific alarm threats, and then the jurisdictions can choose how they want to respond, and we're going to talk about that a little later, how we perceive response. But that can be done now, and so that the priorities can be adjusted within the CAD system and the call types, and that's how that looks from a technical perspective. And then also mentioning, the ASAP program is working on getting that so that because we there's true value. I mean, we love the ASAP program, and so being able to get that so that same information comes across when there is no human involvement on our side. So that's how I see it from a technical perspective. And then from the adoption perspective, I'll be fully transparent. There's 5,400, depending on what day it is, 5,400 ECCs around the country. Most of them small 1-2-seater type institutions. The larger ones, they come to our association conferences. We've got APCO, we've got NINA. There's several around the country and states. good representation in general, although not all the ECCs make it. But when we talk about standards in a session like this at one of our national conferences, attendance is very similar.
Like this, attendance like this.
I mean, that's just it. Talking about standards is not a sexy topic when you can be, listening to someone talk about the latest big event and how they handled it, right? Like a hurricane or a shooting or something like that.
And on the same topic, so how is it being received so far in the community?
So, as I don't remember who mentioned it, I mean, the relationships between the alarm industry in general and public safety, it is what it is, right? So some people you talk to, it's like, yeah, we'll see how, there's a bit of doubt out there. And I try to, don't want to be naive, like Joy was talking about. I think this will have a positive impact and as it rolls out and as it rolls out successfully, hopefully. And so this isn't something that's only happening in the alarm industry. I mean, ECCs are beginning because of companies like Rapid SOS and Rapid Deploy and others that now are bringing in through an IP, an IP over the top like application, bringing in some additional information that we didn't have before. And so being able to build that into our responses is something we're going through that cycle now, trying to figure that out. Crash notification type things, smart building type technologies, so as you start getting more inputs, how do we process them? The benefit in a lot of things, like in the alarm industry, is we don't have to process them. You guys process them and just tell us, you with all your, fancy technologies out that you have in homes and businesses, you aggregate that information and tell us, how bad is this? Kind of like, in an automatic crash notification. Sometimes we get all the information. I mean, and there's hundreds of data points, but we really want to know, is there a high mechanism of injury? Who do I need to send? And so if that can be aggregated, and that becomes very beneficial in the ECC these days.
And Javier, to you on the compliance side, what kind of ongoing assessment? I know you guys still developing the program, finalize some of the stuff, but from an ongoing assessment standpoint, how do you see that?
Yeah, you're right. We are currently still developing the program, and we're in the final stages of that development. And we feel pretty good about where it is at this time. It's still being reviewed to make sure that it meets what the intent of the standard it's all about. So basically, the implementation of this is going to be like any other implementation of a listed category. So we would have to list the monitoring facilities to begin with, just like you would get listed under any category you currently listed, whether a central station or an installation category or anything of the sort. We would have to evaluate you to begin with to make sure that you are at least at the minimum threshold to be able to provide the service that's required by TMA, AVSO1. So that is the beginning. So we will list you to begin with. Once you get listed, then you will be part of the annual audit process that we do for any of the categories that are currently for central stations, or even, for that matter, installation companies and so on. But like I said before, though, I want to make sure that you understand that this is a separate category. So we will not do the evaluation. So if you're listed already as a central station, as it were, we will not do this evaluation concurrently with the evaluation of the central station itself. These are two separate categories. So we're going to treat them as such. So we will evaluate the central station first when we do your evaluation. Then once we finish that, then we would evaluate the AVSO1 process afterwards. So this is a completely separate category. You're going to have a completely separate file number with UL, a different category control number. So you would have an annual audit once a year to continue that evaluation. If you're not listed for any categories, then obviously that would be the only thing that you would have on the annual basis, is that one particular evaluation. So it is going to be a continuous annual audit process like we do with all the other categories we have. We like I said, we're in the final stages of developing that category. We've been working hard on that. There's a lot of background that we still have to get together and finalize, but we feel good about where it's going.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joy had mentioned that the standard was written technology agnostic, and it really was an later goal. We started off, as you had mentioned as well, really ambitiously. We wanted to own the algorithm. We really wanted to define a value point for a front door, a value point for a motion, a value point for an RSS feed. I mean, we tried to get down to this very, very prescriptive process Didn't take us too long, and we figured out that was not scalable. There's no way to handle make that. It had to be evaluated every 6 months or every month, really. So then became technology agnostic. So it became very descriptive versus prescriptive. But technology can play a huge part, right, in what is fed into automation, considering existing history, existing data points, and considering external data points, and then also some analytics. So maybe Derek talked to some of the possibilities. Again, the standard itself is agnostic, but what you can do from a technology standpoint is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I mean, I think when you think about kind of the three different areas, you've got the determination of the score, then you've got the routing based on the score, and then you've got the kind of back-end reporting on how well you're doing as far as your scoring. Like, I think that the second two, I think the routing and the reporting, those are already kind of being done today, maybe in a slightly different way. It's kind of like you said, a lot of this stuff's already being done. It's just a slightly different variation. So we already have a feature, I think it's called adaptive threat scoring or something like that. It basically allows you to route things to the right queue of people based on the severity, right? So we already have that today. This would just be something we would kind of shoehorn into that to basically say there's just a different type of scoring we're using. So so I think those are fairly straightforward. I think the more interesting areas are on helping determine scores. And like you said, there are a lot of like sensors where it's fairly obvious, like this broken glass sensor, it's probably at least a threat to property, if not other types of threats, right? So we can start to, I don't think we're a long way from ever having the system determine the threat level. I think you need human judgment almost in all situations. But what we can do is guide people and say, hey, based on all these different sensors that we have, we're pretty sure that this is a threat to property. So it gets it to the right person. They still have to make that final decision and then streamline it. So I think like that's and we have like lots of sources of data. We've got other third party, like you said, we've got weather, we've got data coming from not just the sensors, but from the user themselves. So, people might have a mobile app or they might have text messaging and they can say, hey, I saw a person, right? And at some point, if there's the idea, I know we already have a product that's similar to like a digital panic button somebody could have. If there's a category they can choose on that I'm in fear of my life, guess what? That automatically we can recommend a threat level for that. So I think there's lots of possibilities on that kind of determination side of things. And that's not even including the AI possibilities. I think there's a lot more.
As you mentioned, the operator is the final determinant of the classification right before the call for service is made. So it ultimately comes down to the operator training, but what can be fed to that operator to give that operator better, even the operator's situational awareness to be able to help determine, and then she goes through they go through the confirmation process. Go ahead.
Say something with that?
Yeah.
It goes back to what Bob said. ECCs, PSAPs do not want to be the ones to aggregate this data. They don't want us to be presenting these threat levels or this AI. They want our people who are the subject matter experts to look at these devices, look at what's happening, and get it to them in a consumable format so they can quickly make adjustments. So this is by no means this idea that we are going to bypass humans and what we do, and frankly, what our secret sauce is going to be regardless of technology. I never see a point where we're not going to need humans to help augment the technology, okay? Technology is only as good as the humans using it. So that's been a question that's come up a lot of times for fear, and I just don't see it.
Yeah, and not only that, ECC wouldn't take it if not, but delivered by a human, right? Or ASAP,
yeah.
Which is initiated by a human.
Right.
All right, Joy, I think we may have covered this, but if your automation doesn't support, how do you see the process? How do you see it working out in those central stations where the automation may not have it?
Okay, if automation doesn't have it, it's just a point of education with your team. Like I said, they're already doing this. It's just giving them a glossary of terms. Anybody who has a central station, or even anybody who's a dealer, I also have stuff in a third party. We have action plans, we have glossaries, we have definitions. All we have to do is rework them, much to your point a little bit about what's already in automation as well, to what these threat levels are. And just remember, the default right now, currently, what everybody's doing for the most part where they're dispatching to is level 1, which is we have an alarm, but we don't have additional data or limited data, or we don't know how to express that data. This is helping the operators know look, here's the situations in training where there's a human presence, and the PSAPs want to know this. So all this is doing, they can do this tomorrow. You can bring this back to your centrals. Even if you're not going to implement the standards right away, it's an amazing conversation to have with your teams, not only in the central station, but operationally, okay? So that they are aware as they're designing these systems and they're working with these systems and these systems are coming in, what these things mean. All it's going to do is make them better, but they're already doing it, and they're kind of doing it blindly, and they do it really fantastically, even though we haven't put a structure to it. So imagine with the structure how much better they're all going to be, and they'll thank you. My operators love structure. They do. That's why those people are really good at it. Let's be honest. That's the personality type, right?
Yes. So the standard itself, again, is really just classifying what we're already doing today. It's really defining what we're seeing and what we're doing today. This is the swim lane that's actually documented in the standard. Like I said, it's kind of daunting. When you get right down to it, it's a really straightforward process. Yeah, it comes in. If you're thinking about it mentally, it comes in as 1. Is there anything that escalates or de-escalates it? If yes or no, right, it goes up or down. If not, then then it's dispatched. Then you go through the confirmation process, and then dispatch does 1. If it goes up, what do you see? So there's very specific examples within the standard about what would be defined as a 2, as a 3, and as a 4. So very well defined. And again, most of us are doing this mentally already, and not even aware of it.
Honestly, it's like the Choose Your Own Adventures books when you were a kid. If this is this way, you do this. If this is this way, you do that. It's really that simple.
Bob, to you now. How will this assist the responders with resource allocation? You kind of touched on a little bit, but also situation awareness, officer safety, and perhaps even apprehensions.
Right. So how each agency handles it, it'll be different. I mean, there's no standard across law enforcement agencies, and I mentioned there are 5,400 ECCs, and if you multiply that times 4 to 5, that's how many law enforcement agencies there are across the country. And so it'll look different depending on your jurisdiction. What won't change is with apprehensions. I mean, any information, any strategic information or situational awareness that can come in earlier in any type of call produces a better outcome. For example, I mean, early on we looked at videos where of a specific example of a motorcycle showroom that was broken into, and the officer showed up on scene to look at the video to get the suspect description to find out that they'd passed them as they were coming in the scene. So having that information up in advance, any information, any descriptive information, video information that can be passed on, provides better opportunity for apprehension. So again, not wanting to be naive, but being excited about what this can do, both with the alarm industry and with public safety, is that we can have some wins, some easy wins up front, and that's just going to push this forward, right? And that's what I hope we see, because that's why officers, that's why police officers are doing what they're doing. They like to chase people. They like to be able to catch the people that are doing the bad stuff. They don't like to go and not have to hand it over to a detective and they spend weeks or months trying to figure out who this person is and things like that. They like to catch people, chase them and catch them, and this will give them that opportunity to chase them and catch them and get them somewhere else in our communities.
Thank you, Javier. This was a partnership, collaboration between public safety and our security industry as well. So how can the public safety folks know who is a part of it, who is listed? And then is there a recourse for them to report, say, not bad players?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of any category that we develop at UL. We understand that, sometimes, unfortunately, there's going to be some, bad apples, if you will, bad players and so on. And there's got to be a way for us to be able to identify that. So for the ECCs or anybody for that matter that may have a concern about somebody maybe perhaps not scoring the system properly or not providing the right communication protocols that are required or anything of the sort. If they have a continuous problem with a particular monitoring center that is not providing the right service in accordance to the standard, they could actually file a complaint through UL. We have a market surveillance program that's developed, and actually within that market surveillance program, it's one for the alarm industry. specifically for the alarm industry that we have. So it's very simple. It's just a very simple online form that they go in and they fill out the information that they have about the company name, if they have the UL file number associated with that, which I hope it is, because hopefully they're listed for that category. They'll be able to provide that and provide the actually incident report as to what exactly happened. When that happens, then within UL, it triggers automatically a department, a market surveillance program department that will open up an actual incident report and send that to my department. And then now my department will investigate that. We'll investigate specifically the problem that would rise, that maybe the ECC saw, anybody that has a problem with a particular incident that occurred. And we will follow that through. So we will get together with the monitoring station and actually look at the incident itself and look at the scoring that was provided, if it was done correctly, or if it was, what was the complaint about, and how we're going to rectify that complaint. And if we find something wrong, then we provided a report to that monitoring station that will detail what they need to do for corrective actions. So that is a way for the ECCs and to be able to file a complaint through the UL program. The one thing I will say about that, however, is that we mentioned earlier that this is a voluntary standard, right? Okay, so that means that there are going to be some central stations or monitoring stations that may not be listed for this category, and they may not be doing the right thing. And unfortunately, under those conditions, the ECC, they really don't have a recourse, because we can't evaluate, we can't open an incident report on an unlisted company. So you would have to be a listed company to begin with for us to be able to do that. So that is one of the reasons why this standard really calls for third-party verification to kind of put everybody in the same playing field. So that is basically what we have available for the industry. But this market surveillance is not just for alarm industry. It's open for any category for that matter. So you could file a complaint against a manufacturer or anything like that as a central station or whatever, as well. So, and we will investigate that. It could be a consumer against a toaster at home or something. So this market surveillance program is available for any listed category within UL, but we have one specifically for the alarm industry, and we have it ready to go for this particular category as well.
Yeah, and for the non-UL station that may be offending, then we've got TMA and PPVAR that could engage conversation and work with them and educate them and get them on board as well. So there's both sides can be addressed for that.
Yeah.
Going back to technology just a little bit, analytics and AI, as we see technology that's there today and emerging perhaps, what kind of impact do we see with perhaps analytics and AI on this standard?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the most obvious, just walking out on the show floor out there, use of AI is computer vision right now. It's the one that's kind of like really attracting a lot of attention. I think that computers are getting better and better at analyzing behavior. And, you already have, we already have systems, right, that can tell the difference between a gunshot and a firecracker, right? It's very simplistic kind of AI processing, but it's already, computers already have the ability to tell the difference between somebody who is getting into their car and somebody breaking into a car, right? So that type of behavioral analysis that definitely could fast track scoring, right? To say, hey, it's definitely a threat to property. Maybe you go to the next level, say, oh, there's somebody in the car they're breaking into, it's a threat to life, right? Or whatever. I think that like those types of things are going to be game changers. I don't know, that they're there yet. I think that, the weapons detection demos are pretty cool out there, that kind of show a weapon. I know some of them use like other light spectrums you can actually see through clothing, see if somebody has a concealed weapon. Like those types of things could be like crucial in like determining a score. So I think computer vision is kind of a no-brainer that will probably have an impact at some point. I don't know when you're going to see widespread across the industry, but that'll have a big impact. There's another branch of AI, which is called machine learning, which is basically analyzing patterns in data. And if you think about it, like the ability to take all these signals that are coming in and seeing how people respond to them and actually completing the loop and seeing like whether they are right or not on that response, that's a perfect machine learning problem where you have basically a bunch of variables coming in, different data coming in. take a look at the outcome and start to train the model to say, hey, based on, and computer models are very good at having like many different variables. Because if you think about a signal, you've got the location, you got time of day, you got the historic data from that same place. How often does it have a false alarm? It's really difficult to write rules that determine all that by a human being, but computers are very good at that. So they can take those patterns and they can start to take pretty good guesses to say, hey, this meets the pattern that I've seen of false alarms. So maybe start at that, start at a 0, and let's have it, let a human get in there and judge it. But I think it's a 0, right? Or, hey, this very closely, and everything has a confidence score. So you could say, I have a high confidence score that this looks like something that someone's life is in danger. Let's route that to the top of the queue. So that's where it gets like super interesting, I think.
And ultimately it comes back to the operator anyway. That's joke.
Well, no, I was going to say it's as machine learning and as our devices get the same as now, our devices have gotten better, our systems have gotten better, and with the help of automation to correlate that data for our operators, it's almost endless to how much we could accomplish.
All right, so CSV01 is one of our other standards, the TMA owns. How does AVS01 and CVS01, how do they play together?
Perfectly. CVS01 is a process standard. It is how you determine if it's a verified alarm or not. AVS01, we like the S a lot in a lot of our stuff, so we're confusing everybody. But
and ECC.
And ECC, yeah. We like our acronyms, as everybody knows. It's how you get into the secret club. You get the secret handshake, and you get a glossary of acronyms, right? Forgive me, I'm a recovering salesperson, so I have to make a joke every now and again, or I can't sit through standards. AVS01 is how the ranking goes once you have a verified alarm, okay? So I'm gonna use CVS01 to determine that a human is present, and I'm gonna use AVS01 to then dispatch to my ECC or PSAP and say, I have a level 2 alarm. So see the difference? One is the process to come to the level and whether it's verified or not. The next is how we're going to communicate with an ECC and basically use common nomenclature to have the most effective and frankly safest response to a human being present. Because keep in mind, a human being present for an alarm office, for a peace officer in this day and time, that's a completely different response. Our world has changed, okay? The aggression that people are engaging law enforcement in, having that knowledge in advance, that helps them prepare for how they're going to have that interaction. And so that's super important for them to have that information. It's not to say that that person's a bad person, but we want to give, the more information you have, the better you do. It's like anything, right? All of us in our business, our day-to-day lives, we all have kids. The more information we have, the better decisions we make, right? So CVS01, again, is how to determine it's a verified alarm. And that's verification is a whole different spectrum. And currently it's really only done with audio and video verification. Not that it's not getting better, but that's where it's at now. AVS01 applies to everything. So you would just use AVS01 or CVS01 to determine the level of AVS01. We got to work on these acronyms fast. Say that 10 times fast.
All right, and Bob, one of the questions we get a lot about is the response, right? And that this standard may actually lead to non-response. Maybe speak to that for a moment, if you can.
Right. I can't speak for every jurisdiction, obviously. Sheriff Rambosk, the man that signs my check, his slogan is community safety service. That's his focus, and obviously this plays right into that in our communities. And right now, our current response for an alarm, like I mentioned, is sending 2 deputies. We will continue to send 2 deputies to anything level 1. Level 2, we'll determine from there. But I can guarantee if we go out with a level 4, that residence or that business is going to have a surge of deputies responding, probably an aviation unit. A lot of agencies are deploying technologies like drones as first responders. So again, there's a lot of opportunity just because of where public safety is in the technology to be able to take advantage of this. And again, every jurisdiction will take and deal with this differently. I hope we don't see a non-response, but I know there are areas that don't respond now. Yep. In those cases, having that ability to pull something kind of out of the dirt and say, hey, this is up here, I would hope would in those cases would indicate a response where there may not be responding now.
Yeah, certainly the goal for ADS-01 was not to go to non-response, but really to provide better information, more accurate information to the ECC so they can respond accordingly. That really is the goal. Now, how they respond is going to be up to them, of course, but that really is just better information was the primary goal. All right, and this one goes to everybody. When will it be ready? So when will automation be ready? When will the UL be ready? When will the ECC be ready and the centrals itself? So we'll just start at the table this way.
The earlier we start getting it in the ECCs, the quicker we will that iteration will happen, and we'll start asking for it and expecting it. Because I really hope. I mean, again, a lot of it depends on what happens upriver. I'm hoping by the end of this year that it's something that every ECC at least knows what it is, and hopefully most of our calls are coming in that way.
Okay. And for automation. And I speak for you specifically, but also in general for automation.
Yeah, I mean, I think, automation is fairly easy because people can implement it today if they want to without automation. But I think we can help speed it along. So like, I don't know what the other vendors are doing, but I know for our action plans, we're probably targeting third quarter to have something available for customers based on customer feedback. We'll probably trial it with a few people, kind of see if it's useful to them and tweak it a little bit based on that. So yeah, that's probably the time frame we're looking at. Yeah,
feedback I've got from others or some level of support Q3 and more developed over time Q4. I know for us our automation probably Q4 for us is more like. Javier?
Yeah, basically we're trying to coordinate this, with the industry as well. So obviously the automation platforms have to be ready to go. And so on. But of course, this standard can be done manually, like we talked about. So based on that, we're going to be ready by the beginning of Q4 or so to provide this service to the industry as well. But that's still a little bit in the works because I think that the automation providers probably still need to do a little bit of homework, I guess, as far as like records and reports that they have to provide and so on. But that once we get that, I think that we'll be better able to coordinate our certification. But we're looking at that. We're looking at the late third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter.
Enjoy.
Honestly, from alarm standard, we could start this now. So I'll speak to my central and what we're doing. The education process has already started with my people, from my operations people to my central station. Speaking globally, TMA and PPVAR in conjunction are developing operator training. The goal is 4 modules. We're hoping to have those modules be done by Q3 so that we can start pushing out to the industry available training. We also have what we call a training video, but it's really more of just this is what it is, this is why it's important, and this is why it should be important to you, that can easily be consumed by call takers, dispatchers, and law enforcement as well. We're hoping to have that done at the beginning of, probably the middle of Q3 as well. So there's been a lot of moving parts doing this. I know of certain large centrals that are going to try to pilot this end of Q3, Q4 with some targeted ECCs. So as a whole, we could do this now, but from a more strategic place, I would plan to start seeing this and hearing this a lot more by Q4 of this year, and it's just going to continue to improve.
And then larger ramp into the beginning of 24. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those are the questions we had scheduled for the panel. Any other questions from the audience? If you want a copy of the standard, it's on the TMA site. I think there's a link on the PPVAR site as well, so you can download a copy of it. And if there's, yes, sir.
So, generally, I guess two parts of the question. From a monitoring center perspective, what can a monitoring center do to help move this forward internally and to help evangelize this? And also, the second part to the question is, from like a dealer perspective that doesn't have an in-house monitoring center, what can they do to help get the good news out and to help move things forward, knowing that there's a lot of things that are in motion here over the coming few months?
Take that.
Yes, I can. From a central station perspective, like for mine, we're already doing it. We're educating our operators. We're educating why this is important to them, how this will help them. when they have really busy nights or it's really crazy, where it's
Can you be even more specific on
what I'm doing in mine. Okay. We're utilizing some of PPVAR's collateral material they have that explains what the levels are. My central station supervisors are randomly pulling 5 dispatches a week, and with each of our shifts, our best dispatchers and the people who have been in our call centers for years, they're there because they like prescribed process. They don't like mass amounts of change usually. They want 1 and 1 to equal 2, and it's still 2, and it's going to be called 2 until the end of time, right? That's what makes them so good. So their buy-in will be crucial to implement this. So trying to make it fun and kind of educational and just easy now is to prepare them as they have to go more into the more prescriptive later. So that's what I'm doing. We also, we as a company participate a lot in the community, and I see, different people I know you in your communities as well. And so when we're doing things with law enforcement or we're doing things in the community, we're talking about it as well to get basic education out there. As a dealer, what you can do is, one, again, educate your staff, but think about it from a value proposition as you're trying to sell or you're trying to differentiate yourself, right? Bottom line, whether you're a dealer without a central station or somebody with a central station, we're all looking to differentiate ourselves as the subject matter expert, right? Otherwise, they're just going to go online and order Ring, right? Why not? So they're coming to us because they want advice and they want the subject matter expert. So this is just another touch point and opportunity for them to educate. And the more they educate, the more adoption that'll happen. You're also building trust and building sales and help in your own organization as well.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
What's the end game at this point? What are we looking really to accomplish? And do we get the support from the dealer to make those corrections, right?
Well,
That's where it comes down to. I can't get into the house, I don't get keyed, I'm busy. We get this every single day.
it's got to be an education thing, but keep in mind, I have.
Motivate them with gift cards and stuff.
Yeah, well, no, what motivates them, and I'll speak because I'm a dealer too. I have a central station and I have a whole sector of my business that we own from, nuts to bolts, right? And then I have, through acquisition and other things, I have other ones where I put it on a wall and I kind of got to step back, which is a really weird place for somebody who has a central station, by the way, to let go of that control and put it into somebody else's hands and deal with it. Where the motivation is this is going to be a better service to the customer. It's a point for a touch point. And thirdly, I don't want the calls. I got to be honest. If we're not touching our customer as a dealer and we're not interacting with our customers as a dealer to help them, because through acquisitions, I've got some that I got to be honest, they pretty much put something on a wall and they expected you to deal with it till the end of time. That's why they paid you and that was it, right? They maybe went and did a service call.
I'm already doing that with Alarm Factor.
Well, again, there's going to be good players and bad players, but the motivation as a dealer for me personally is that for that customer base that I bought, that was just an alarm panel on the wall and calling a central and not interactive services, not the other things, right? I got to be honest, they are the least sticky portion I have. And the more we engage them and the more we become their partner, the stickier they become. Every statistic shows that. And any dealer that doesn't care about that needs to call me so I can buy their alarm base and they can go retire to Naples and we'll do it right.
I'm not sure Bob wants it.
All right.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm like West Palm Beach. How's that?
And when we were developing the standard, we really had the end consumer in mind as well. The expectation is, as this becomes more known throughout our industry, more known through the ECC, public safety, as they understand the terms and they come to trust the terms, then we'll see appropriate response. So there will be an absolute benefit. Again, we're doing this now, but now we're standardizing the language, so that standardized language streamlines to them, and then we think the expectation is for appropriate response based on those levels. So we're expecting the end result to be benefit to the consumer, ultimately. And that really is that's why we're here. Mm-hmm. That's why all of us are here, right?
Yeah,
It's to protect our customer.
And what I would say is, dealers got over, I remember when, like I said, when enhanced call confirmation, or they used to call it enhanced call verification, right? When that came out, oh my God, we're never going to be able to do this. My customers will never do this. We're never going to install it right. And we still have dealers that are bad about explaining that. We still have dealers that don't follow the prescriptive things, right? Out of third parties or people, there's always going to be some bad players. But the industry as a whole, 95% are on board and doing it properly and got over it. Same thing's going to happen here. but
Yeah,
that's,
I'm gonna add that, at the central station standpoint, I'm doing this for a very long time, we'll just leave it at that, right? So the alarm factor, right? So the dealer, I penalize the dealer. This is your number, this is your 0.05, this is what I need out of you. Anything above that, I'm gonna charge you over and above. Stay at this number, your number stays as low as it is. You go beyond it. So the motivating factor at that point is stay within that alarm factor. So, right? We're
Yeah.
trying to,
Yeah,
pistol, do a nice show with pistol.
well, no, this isn't going to change that at all. Literally, this changes nothing of what you're doing now, just how you're communicating it to law enforcement. Now, conversely,
right.
your dealers are going to come to you and be like, I have a customer, I saw the officer told him it was a level 1 and that's why it took 2 hours to come. And they're going to be, he asked me how, we want to dispatch level 2 or level 3, we want better response. That's going to then motivate the dealers to be coming to you, go, how do we do this? And that's when you're going to talk to them about better installations, better technology, better options.
100%. Yeah. Again, the technology agnostic, but technology plays a role for sure, and better information coming in, and that better information passed on leads to better responses, more accurate responses.
And it's a circle of life. You make more money, the more services we're putting through to you too. So it's, it's a good thing for everybody.